Hey, Lynn. Hey, Jeff. All right, guys, let's just take a moment and sink into the room. We'll give people a few more minutes to roll in. Although I did hear from a few people that they weren't going to be able to make it tonight. Just let your awareness soften and take in the entire room. And if you've been practicing, you can feel how that just invites a place of stopping from deep within you. The ability to just stop everything. To stop the world. Your world. To stop your conception of time. So the timing of anything you do becomes a response to this moment. Rather than an anticipation of something in the future. Or an avoidance of the past. How quickly something that felt so real and so immersive leaves the room. And what's left is this ringing peace that just begins magnifying itself as you sit with it. A dynamic, self-existent balance. Not because you're holding something in place, but because you've let go of everything. Let it all go and steep yourself in that balance right now. with your attention at the forehead and crown. Let go of the stories of your life and show up for this eternal moment. Every breath in this moment the self-balanced eternal moment. As that balanced stillness becomes apparent, you need to give yourself to it. Release your heart into it. So that every cell can feel it. Timeless, patient, expansive, what makes this balanced? It's about what you're not doing. You're not pushing at it. You're not pulling at it. You're not asking it to be different than it is. And so it is just a divine experience. the bar for having it so low. And yet most people barely touch upon it. When you've come to know this balance in the meditative state, when you've come to know this deeper reality of the substance of life, of the substance of consciousness, you need to start finding its reflection in the dream of life. Within the system of stories that make up your life, that make up your interactions. In that world, people think of balance like it's stasis. Like it's some boring landing. But it's because they don't really understand it. That balance is the power source for evolution. And your ability to abide with it evolves anything in your presence. At a spiritual level, people can feel it as a power that comes out of you. But even at a story level, even at a false identity level, you as a person, if you can hold true to that balance, it's actually one of the most disruptive things you can do. And that disruption leads to evolution. I work in an academic world and in a world of medicine where a lot of people don't understand basic ethics. A world where people are vying for position, playing a zero-sum game. They learn to push people around. But then they meet someone like me, and they find they can't push me around. They find I'm the one that's willing to say the things that nobody else will say. I'm the one who doesn't care if they feel bad about themselves because they're behaving inappropriately. I'm the one who holds to truth. It's polarizing, and it's balance. I deal with it every week. I have a publication that I put forward that is my intellectual property. And they threw away large portions of my work without any plan for how to future-proof it. You know, you have 250 citations, and you use certain software and do your due diligence so that in the future, if you have to update it, you don't have to redo all of that by hand, which is nearly impossible. And they weren't organized. They threw it away. And I told them I wouldn't do it. I said, you guys, I did all this for you. You threw it away. You're going to have to figure this out. Nobody does that. People just say, okay. And everyone looks at you like you're difficult, like you're hard to work with. But from the perspective of balance within the world of the story, you have to think about what the consequences are of yielding to their dysfunction. They have this dysfunction and they're saying, we're going to push it off onto you. And the easiest thing to do is to say, okay, give up 3 days of your life to fixing references that they screwed up. And what's the result of that? The result is 5 years later, they will still have the same problem. Nothing will have evolved. They won't have fixed what they were doing wrong. Why? Because you wanted to be liked. because you didn't want to be called difficult. Instead, knowing that it's imbalanced, you hold true, you make them pay for their own mistakes, you don't take on the cost of it, and they evolve. Right now, they want to take that chapter and they want to split it into 3 chapters. And they're pigeonholing the timeline and trying to push themselves onto it as authors. It's my intellectual property. But they're just not used to anybody holding balance. Tomorrow I have to have a conversation with them where I explain to them that what they're proposing isn't even legally one of their options. Not an easy conversation, because no one else would have it with them. But in the process, they're going to learn about authorship ethics. They're going to learn that some people can't just be pushed around, that just because you want something doesn't mean it's yours. And they'll evolve. That's balance. It's an interesting dichotomy. What is so comforting and enriching in the silence is so polarizing in the dream of life. And that's what you're here to learn. Not just here in this class, here on this planet. You're here to understand what life is about, and the fundamental rule of life is balance. Self-existent balance. And then the ability to stand in that space within the dream time of life. Which means, first, you don't abuse people. But as it goes deeper, it means you don't allow people to abuse you. Every choice you make matters and has a consequence for everyone else in this world. Bad things grow in permissive environments, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger until the forces in that environment learn balance. You are the force in that environment. Learn balance. Learn how to stay stable in discomfort. It's not easy. But it's a moment or two. And when it passes, you can step back into the silence and experience the comfort of that, having done right by it. This is how you bring your spiritual realization from your practice into the world. This is how your practice serves the the world around you. It's always deepening. I haven't seen the end of it. But over the years, you just watch as your abilities change. Things you couldn't have done 10 years ago, you can suddenly do. Why? Because your understanding of it isn't relative. You can see what's right. And so you stand there with people who are still stuck in relativity. If you can't see what's right, then you don't die on a hill over it. But you usually know when someone is up to no good. Or lost in their ego. And you don't have to judge it. But you don't have to create a permissive environment for it either. The whole world gets mad, and the whole world grows. And then you go home and meditate. What areas do you have in your life where you are facilitating imbalance for someone else? Probably a few. My advice is that you pick one and you correct it. If someone has grown reliant on your facilitation, just explain to them that you're making a change, that certain things won't be okay anymore, and that it's not about judging them. You're just being careful what you feed in life. And then don't be complicit with it for another minute. Don't eat their bad karma for them. Hold your ground without apology. And ideally without fear, but in the beginning you'll feel afraid. Someone is saying just yesterday she took away sleepover privilege from her son because she felt that she needed to rein him in from teenager impulses. I told him we'd rethink it in February. It's hardest with children. You know, until you're about 22 or 23 years old, your prefrontal cortex hasn't even fully developed. And so you don't have impulse control, which means your parents are your impulse control. So if we allow our children to run rampant without impulse control or behave in ways like that without consequence, we may be more liked in the moment, we may be less polarizing, but no good is actually coming of it. It's not good for us, it's not good for them, it's not good for the people around them or the other adults that will eventually have to interact with them as they get older. So, smart move. When I was younger, I needed to be liked. It disappears at some point. And then you're free. Let's go back into the silence. Back into the self-existent balance. Merge with that principle. Deepen yourself within it. Let it master you. Let's move up and down the mountain a little bit. So take that self-existent balance, that peace, and gently move your experience of that down into the heart. And abide there with it for a while. A safe place to just open. Now bring that feeling down to the lower center, below the navel, above the pelvis. Experience that balance there, like a ball of energy. All the programming of your lower life stories. Expose them to the balance. Let it do its work. Just make them available. You'll feel better. released. Nothing to reach for outside of this moment. Just be at the lower center. Rise back up to the heart. For that area to open, you really have to relax. You have to let it all go. And why wouldn't you? To do anything less than that is insanity. It serves no one, nothing. So let go now. Now back up to the head, the center of the head, forehead and crown. Above the mire, we start at the source, and then we bring it down into the denser parts of ourselves, where it's bumpier, where it takes more effort to let go. And then we do the same thing in life. We bring that clarity and that simplicity into the stories of our life. And we pick the choices that are aligned with truth. We pick the choices that force consciousness to awaken. The choices that insist on accountability. And we learn how to abide there, even when it's uncomfortable. Not through force, through release. Not through pushing and pulling, but just through willingness to be aligned with something real. The world needs you. There are less of you than you think. This week, I want you to find one area of your life where you've been flaking on that, and I want you to fix it. Start in meditation. Open into it. Let it come naturally. You don't need to win the fight. You just need to sustain it. You just need to stay open and hold truth in the space through your thoughts, your actions, and your words. Any questions before I send you back to your evening? Okay, everybody. I'll be here again next Thursday. I will see you then. Thank you for coming, Sheila. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.